Ever since the civil rights laws of the 1960s, the Voting Rights Act has been interpreted in such a way that minorities have to get adequate representation. Now, a lot of these minorities, by the way, live in red states. They live in states like Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma. And so what's happened is that the courts have forced these red states to create majority black districts. The term minority applies to Hispanics as well, but it's mainly applied to blacks. And so you've had red states that are forced to create these black districts in order to get black representation. It's a kind of affirmative action, as I said yesterday, as applied to voting. And really what's before the Supreme Court is, should this practice be stopped? In other words, if we're moving toward a colorblind society, if we're getting rid of affirmative action in university admissions and federal contracting, in government jobs and promotions, then why not get rid of race-based thinking in drawing congressional lines as well? I think this is actually where the Supreme Court is going, and this is what a majority of the court is going to decide. Just listening to the arguments, it's pretty clear that there was a lot of skepticism toward this idea of race-based districts. Now, in a rather peculiar moment, Justice Ketanji Jackson, who can kind of be counted on to say the most outlandish and sometimes the dumbest things that you're going to get from the court in previous eruptions. She has even been chastised by Elena Kagan, and she gets looks from Sotomayor. So she is, in a sense, in a league of her own. But she makes this really amazing statement where she says that the reason that you need black majority districts is black people are like the disabled. She says they don't have equal access to the voting system. They're disabled. So the idea here is that just as disabled people need a ramp, they need special treatment. They need extra solicitousness, because you can't just say, hey, I've got a bunch of stairs. Okay, why don't you just roll your wheelchair up the stairs? No, I can't. I'm disabled. So no one is arguing with the logic of that. But what Ketanji Jackson is saying is that blacks as a group are basically like the physically or mentally handicapped. This is, I think, a very shocking thing for her to say. In fact, this is the kind of thing that racists say. And I think the rest of the court looked over at her as if to say, are you seriously contending that blacks are somehow prevented or disabled from just showing up to vote on the same basis as whites? So I think that this preposterous statement is not going to stand, nor is the court going to go in that direction. Right now, the American South is insanely rigged because of the Voting Rights Act against Republicans. In normal redistricting, these southern states, which are by and large red states, would have a lot more red seats. And if the Supreme Court decides the way I think it will and really ought to, which is removing the consideration of race from the whole area of congressional redistricting, what you'll find is that these southern states draw their districts the way the blue states do, the way northern states do, the way everybody else does, draw them in a way that tends to be beneficial to the ruling party in that state, because that's the legislature that controls that state. So what we have now is the Voting Rights Act is used as an instrument of undermining electoral democracy and thwarting political representation and giving an unfair advantage to the Democrats. And I hope that as a result of this hearing, decision, by the way, to come in several months, the Supreme Court puts an end to this nefarious practice. Guys, when I first came to America around 1980, I had a mere $500 in my pocket. Now, if I had been super frugal and not spent a penny of that money, what do you think it would be worth now? What could it actually buy today compared to what it could buy in 1980? Answer, less than $130. Why is that? Because the US government, through the Fed, is constantly printing money. Now, when the government prints money, you got more money chasing the same amount of goods and services, so money goes down in value, goes down in purchasing power, it buys less. The Fed has been at this since 1913. That's why a dollar today can only buy what a few cents could buy in 1913. And the government continues to print oceans of money. It never stops. An ounce of gold reached a high of $850 in 1980. It's worth around $3,900 an ounce today. So historically, over time, gold has gone up and up in value. Dollars have gone down and down in purchasing power. What about in the last 12 months? Well, gold is up over 40%. I believe now is the time for you to check it out. Find out how you can diversify your savings with gold and silver. And this is why I've partnered with Goldco. Goldco offers the best customer service for precious metals ownership. They are also the only gold dealer that offers a first-time gold buyer rebate of up to 10% in bonus silver on qualified purchases. Now, there's no better offer out there, so check it out. Learn more about how to safeguard your savings from the dollar's decline. It's very simple. Here's where you go. DineshGold.com. Easy to remember. Go to DineshGold.com.